Hi, so we're here today with Andrea Tessier, and she is a life coach and an alignment coach. And she also was thinking lots at the moment about family systems and parts work. I love parts work. It makes me so happy. Um, so Andrea, tell me a bit about your journey, about where you are and where you are and where and how where you were, where you are, and how you got here.
I mean, sure. Is this going to be 3 hours? um, so, yes, thank you for that introduction. I am a master life coach. I am a business alignment coach. And really, what I support women with typically is unblocking their expression,
Hmm.
increasing their self confidence and courage, leveraging relationships in their life, and unleashing their most empowered self and being able to choose from that really aligned and authentic place. And I mean, the reason that I'm able to do this work now is because that was my journey, is because that wasn't always the case for me, while I can live a life right now that feels true and authentic, and I can authentically be of service and really help people. Um, it came because of a moment in my life where that wasn't so, where I felt deeply, deeply unfulfilled.
Hmm.
And
What were you doing when you were so unfulfilled?
yeah, so I started my professional life career as an educator, as a teacher for
Me
13 years.
too, for 12 years.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, we really align in that way. I spent a lot of that time teaching overseas and came back to Canada when I felt called and ended up, seeing after the fact that what transpired was a burnout.
Mm.
And,
Mhm.
I vividly remember moments of sitting by myself in my classroom with the lights off, eating my lunch, and desperately hoping no one comes to talk to me.
I can completely relate to that.
Yeah.
Not just like lunchtime, but like your entire I know there's like kids coming in and kids going out, and you have like, 25 lives at any given moment staring at you as the source of all knowledge, right? Um, but there were definitely days where I was like, what if nobody just doesn't show up? Like, would it be possible for me not to have any students today?
Yes, yes.
Not that I
And
didn't love them as individuals. I don't want that to come across that way. It was just the mass horde of like eyeballs staring at me where I felt that what I was giving them wasn't what was really what they needed.
yes. And I deeply resonate with that. And I've done so much work and so much self-study and study with others. And there's a really good reason for that, right? And I can empathize with that, a part of you that's sharing that. And there's some guilt that comes up with that too, because I'm using air quotes. It's not how it's supposed to be, right? We're supposed to be generous. We're supposed to be caring. We're supposed to do it for the kids. And we do. And when we look back and actually start to pick apart how we got there, there's a lot of times where we've derailed from our authentic self. And so
Mm.
what I want to speak to is like for me, even becoming a teacher was because I was so good at quote unquote getting it right.
Mm.
I had learned growing up that if I followed all the rules, if I did everything I was supposed to, if I listened to my teachers and my parents and authority figures, and if I just got it right, then I would be okay. And you do that for long enough, you realize you get to a point you don't know who you even are. You've been living your life for a system or other people or someone else or what you're supposed to be doing, and you end up deeply, deeply unfulfilled. And it's not because you don't want to show up for those little ones that are looking at you. It's not because you don't want to show up powerfully for them, but you start to see, coming back to that parts language, that your whole life was being run by a part that was trying to get it right. And
Mhm.
then you start to question yourself and you're like, oh my God, what is wrong with me? Because here I have everything that I'm supposed to want. I have my dental plan and I have my summers off and I have this career and XYZ. What is wrong with me because I don't feel happy and fulfilled in this? And
Or even worse, in my case, drained, exhausted, mildly depressed, and
yes,
like a little like washed out.
yes, yes, 100%, because you live in those survival patterns, because that's what it is,
Mhm.
for long enough that we get depressed, we get anxious, we get overwhelmed, we burn out. And that is a normal reaction to not living in your authentic self. And what I came to see for me is that there are really two ways that people end up miserable, right? They either follow all of the rules and do everything they're supposed to do, or they never felt safe enough to be who they are in the first place and end up playing it safe.
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah. And so we relate right now because we're teachers and that was our story. But the more I talk to women, the more I talk to, other people who end up feeling fulfilled and or burned unfulfilled or burnt out in their life, it's a similar story.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
my family was full of educators. We were all educators. My actually, if we really wanted the truth, we're all college professors. Um, my grandfather was a professor, a PhD of psychology at Temple. My dad felt that he had to get a PhD in order to marry my mom. So he married my mom and then got a PhD from NYU in accounting, and he was an accounting professor. My aunt was has a doctorate in psychology as well. That's my mom's sister, and she was a school psychologist. My mom was a speech therapist before she had children. And so there were like all these educators in the family, right? My sister and I both became teachers. She's still a teacher. She's still doing the English teaching thing at a high school in the area. And I was like, I taught for 12 years and I'm going to go do something else now. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's really courageous. I acknowledge you and I myself and anybody who has the courage to attempt the unknown.
Yeah.
Because when your paradigm is like, and that's what that is all you saw as teachers and educators in your network and your family and your system, of course that's all you know.
Right.
Of course that's where you're going to land. Right? If
Exactly.
you're not constantly reminded and shown there are options and that you yourself actually get to choose and try out different things, of course that's what we choose.
Well, I think
Because
part of the problem is also we tell people who are 16, 17, 18 years old, you have to figure out what you're going to do with the rest of your life.
yeah,
And at 16, 17, 18, nobody, not male or female or cis male, cis female, right, has the frontal lobe and the prefrontal cortex fully developed until 23 to 28 years old. So you can't make a good decision about what you're going to do for the rest of your life until you're at least 29.
yeah. 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 And even then, we're
And even then,
constantly changing. We're
I changed it
constantly
like 34 and then again at like 37. No, 40. What am I? I'm 47, so 46, 45, somewhere in there. I changed again and then I changed again. So like, yeah. Hmm.
yeah. So that's kind of my story. And I've become an advocate really for people doing life on their own terms, in a way that works for their alignment, their energy, their desires, all of it, and choosing from that place. And what often stands in the way of that is all of the conditioning, everything that we've learned around, belonging and who will be hurt if I choose this and XYZ. And the process is truly unlearning all of those things that have blocked our fullest expression of our life.
Right.
Yeah. Mhm.
I agree.
Mhm.
All of that, yes. I say yes. But I will say there's also like there's a level of healthy dose of fear, right? Like there's a healthy dose of fear of leaving what is known, what is safe, what is because you know that you said that there's certain things that are really nice about the corporate 9 to 5. And if that so if I were okay, so if I were in a corporate 9 to 5 or in education, like teaching, school thing, and that were making me come alive, then great. That's exactly where I'm supposed to be, and I'm flourishing where I'm supposed to be. Right.
Mhm.
But then there are people who are in there who aren't flourishing, who aren't feeling like this is where I'm supposed to be, but I need medical insurance
Mhm. Mhm.
or I need the dental plan or I have kids who I could maybe do it for myself, but because I have kids, I can't financially like figure that out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I totally get that. I totally get that. And in my experience, usually when we think we only have two options, there are at least three that we can't see yet. So rarely, when people come to me with that kind of black or white kind of thinking, is we start to look at possibilities.
Mm,
Because what I'm hearing underneath that is a desire for more fulfillment, a desire for more ease, a desire for more freedom. And it doesn't need to come from leaving your career and blowing up your life, right? It doesn't need to. That's not the only option. And so with my clients, we pick away at other ways of being able to access that.
mm,
And, you know, a lot of the times, nothing has to change for everything to feel different.
interesting.
Yeah. And so if we let that land, it's because we have been trained, conditioned to play an outside in game, which is when I have the dollar amount, when I have the dental plan, when I have the house that looks like this, when I have the cottage, then I'll feel
Hmm.
blank, happy, free, ease, you name it. And we've been conditioned into that game. Like most of us are playing it. And if we are not conscious of it, that's what's happening. But the truth is the game that we get to learn how to play is an inside out game. Is I get to feel free and happy and content and easeful now.
Hmm.
That impacts everything else.
Right.
And so the work is different. It's the inner work. It's the soul line work rather than the goal line work. It's doing the work to really, get clear on our beliefs, get clear on our habits and our patterns that are keeping us stuck. Where is it that we could find more freedom or more fun or more playfulness within the context of the life that we're in right now? Um, and if the value is security, if the value is family, if that's important to you, amazing. Like get behind that and be like, actually, this is a conscious choice. This isn't just being done to me. I'm choosing this because my family is the most important thing to me.
Right.
And so nothing has to change to be like, oh, yeah, I choose this. This is useful to me.
Right.
Yeah, it's like a little bit fired up there, but I feel really, really passionate about
I
it.
should warn you, I'm a bit of it. Oh, not just a bit of. I'm starting in a whole intuitive section of social work your life, right? The whole like using intuition to find your heart desire and find where you're supposed to be. Because a lot of people are like, I know I'm not happy, but I have no idea what I should be doing. So I'm starting to give free intuitive readings to people on podcasts
Ooh,
in order
wow.
to help people figure out where exactly they are and what that they're thinking. And I love that I picked up on your energy of the thing that sparks you up, right? That makes you light up and gets you going.
Yeah.
So, what I guess when somebody comes to work with you, right, as a coach, what does that look like?
Mm. Yeah, so it depends why the person is coming to me, right? People come to me for a lot of different reasons: greater confidence, decision making, feeling overwhelmed, feeling stressed, wanting to make changes in their life but aren't sure of what the steps are, or they want to grow their business in a more sustainable, more aligned way. They may have gotten to a place in their business and they're starting to feel burnt out, or it doesn't feel aligned anymore, and then they come to me and we work together on that. And so I am a firm believer on, and I mentioned this already, kind of like there's the goal line that's happening,
Hmm.
and then there's the soul line. And so the goal line is, again, like where we are conditioned to make most of our decisions for and from, is like the things we want to achieve in our life, the things that we want to have in our life, our goals. Right?
Right.
We use it too. Like since we're small children, people start asking us what our goals are. Right?
Yeah.
And some of the goals we have are conscious and some of them are completely unconscious, but we all have certain things in our life that we want to achieve. And paired with the goal line, we also have a soul line.
Hmm.
And the soul line is our energetics. Our soul line is our emotional body. The soul line is the capacity of our nervous system. Our soul line is also like, where does God or spirit want me to be, based on like, here's what's actually happening in my life and how am I responding to it? And where most people get stuck is they've kind of pushed the needle on their goal line as far as it can go. And the work is actually the soul line work that's going to continue to make the goals move forward.
Right.
And so when I work with my people, it's really a blend of both, right? It's, yes, let's take the aligned actions in our life to get you closer to where you want to be, but also let's look at what's getting in the way. Let's look at, those habits. Let's look at those patterns that have been keeping you stuck. And can we do the internal family systems work? Can we do the inner child work? Can we do some of the energetic work on the emotional level,
Hmm.
right? So that this can move forward. Because most people are like, why am I not in flow? Why do I feel so stuck? And meanwhile, they haven't cried for 15 years. Or they're like walking around shoving their anger down and in, right? And like holding anger or holding big emotions, I always like to use the metaphor of like trying to hold a beach ball underwater, right? It takes a lot of energy. It's all we're thinking about is
Sit on it.
keeping that,
You just sit
just
on
keeping.
it.
Yeah. And then what happens? Like it explodes somewhere else, right? And so whether we realize it or not, when we're not addressing those things, they're actually silently controlling our lives.
Yeah. Hmm. Absolutely.
Right. And to your point about intuition, to really live a life where we have access to our intuition as a power tool of guidance, all of that has to be free and clear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So that we can tap in. If we're walking around stressed and anxious and burnt out in survival mode, you can't hear your intuition. It's a different part of the brain. So
Right.
let's clear that up so that you have an access to it. And then we can start making the changes in your life that will actually move the needle in a way that feels good to you.
Right.
So
My
that's what people expect when they work with me. It's not just to like, okay, let's work on your mindset. We go deep because that is where sustainable change is actually formed. And it's all about empowering the individual to be able to make authentic changes that work for them in their life. Mm-hmm.
which isn't always so easy.
No, I hope nothing about what I'm saying right now is making this sound easy. There are ways to do it that feel easier.
It's true.
Yeah.
There are techniques that make it that give it some ease, right? To use that phrase. As a mindfulness instructor, there are times I get sick of the word ease, but like there are ways to do it with more ease, right? But it's still all process, life
Yeah.
process.
Yeah. Yeah. And personally, like I get off on that process. I love learning and growing just for the sake of it.
Yeah, me too.
Like even when I'm triggered AF and all of my parts are up and my system is dysregulated. It happened twice this weekend. Real talk. There is no like you get to a point and it's all rainbows and unicorns. No. But I love when that stuff comes up
Right.
because opportunity for growth. I see all of those things as happening for me
Yes.
and my evolution, and I get off on that shit.
I'm 100% with you. There's two things I want to say. One is my I took an Intuit. I'm sort of part of still kind of in a intuition class about how to teach intuition. And so she at one point said to one of her clients who said, I want to do what you do. She's like, if you want to do what I do, you've got a lot of work to do. And I was thinking about when you were talking about how do you find it and how do you find your like how do you find yourself and you got to get quiet and you were talking about all the emotions and being able to hear it. And I was like, yeah, I guess that's like my being able to sit with my intuition and like know what's going on. I think that's what you were saying. You're talking about being in touch with your intuition. I was
Mhm.
thinking about how I sit every morning for an hour and sometimes on my weekends for 2 hours just to like get in touch with me, right? Like I need that time. Otherwise, I can't be all that I am because I haven't processed my own stuff. And part of the processing is the sit, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and I can't do the work of intuition without being a a meditator. Like I just can't do it because
Mhm.
I'm not tapped in enough to be able to do it. But
Yeah.
to know that about myself, right? Like
Mhm.
that's my process and I've had to figure that out over the past 12 years since I've left teaching.
Mhm. Mhm.
Or
Yeah.
actually for 13 years since I got sick. 13 years since I got sick. 2011 I left teaching. So I guess that is 12 years.
Amazing.
2020, 2011, 2012 was my last school year, so 11 years.
Yeah. Yeah, that. And I love the conversation around intuition because I really see it as a relationship. Like it's already there.
Yeah,
We all have, the ability to access it. And just like any relationship, it takes time
and
and
trust.
and effort and trust. And for that person that maybe is contemplating a switch in life, whether it's from teaching or corporate to maybe something else, and they think they need to know the plan. They think
Mhm.
they need to have the whole map before taking their first step. First of all, I get you. And that makes a lot of sense because, again, since we were little, we're trained to have the whole
The whole map.
map.
How,
Right? You
how,
go to kindergarten and then you go to grade school and then you go to high school and then you go to university and then you get your first summer job. And like all of this is planned out for you until it's not.
well, and some people decide even in like middle school they're going to take a gap year. If they
Yeah.
already know it that they're taking a gap year. I never took a gap year. But like, there are some people who like take a gap year and they like go and do something with it. Like, I don't know if you know this, but Benedict Cumberbatch took a gap year and was in Nepal at a like monastery.
Yeah. Amazing.
It is amazing. But like,
Yeah.
yeah, but it's part of the plan. Like even the
Yeah.
gap year is planned.
Yeah. And that's what most of us have is that kind of thing until we don't. And it's when that happens where the work really starts, where life really starts, is when we stop and we realize that what was working before isn't useful to where I want to go. And what's required is not a new plan. It's not a new map. It's a different way of approaching it. And for me, what that looked like after I left teaching was, some amount of travel. And rather than having my life plan set out for me, which was tricky because for 35 years, a bell told me when I could pee, right? Like
Right.
this is hard. I woke up every morning, no joke, and I checked in with my heart and I said, what do I need today?
Mm.
And it sounds simple, but this is why it's not. It was because for 35 years, It was, what does somebody else need?
Outside.
What
Mhm.
do I need to do to move the needle outside of me? What can I do for that thing outside of me? So to have the first question I asked myself in the day was, what do I need? And then committed to doing it was a game changer.
Mm.
And whether you want to jump careers and do something else, or whether you just want to shift and experiencing more aliveness and authenticity in your life, that is a power tool. So
Right.
if you only take that from this conversation, what do I need today, and actually make the commitment to do it, I promise you, your life will change.
Hmm. I love that question. And I think a lot of us don't have the needle on the inside. Like we have the needle on the outside.
Yeah, yeah, that's the outside in game. And
Yeah.
so to change that and start playing a different game, it takes a really mindful approach to consciously doing things differently. And
And it's not selfish to ask that question first,
Mhm.
because is it selfish? Is it selfish to be on an airplane and put your mask on first and then put it on the person next to you who can't put it on? Because if you don't do it that way, you pass out. And then both of you are passed out, right? So neither of you gets oxygen.
Mhm.
And the other thing I often say is that the example that parents are giving to their children about what it means to live an authentic life,
Mhm.
right? Like, what does it mean to live authentically? And what does it mean to live heart centered? And
Mhm.
that means you're listening to your own heart and you're listening to your own authenticity rather than ignoring it for whatever you think is for the greater good of the family. Because, in all honesty, if you are leading from a space that's outside of yourself, you're not actually leading the family at all.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, that's what it means to be self-led. And I think there's no greater gift than we can give to others than living fully in alignment, fully in integrity. And the truth is you're still probably going to show up really powerfully for your kids. You're still going to show up for your family. You're still going to show up for the things that you've committed to because they matter to you.
Right,
But the outcome's not going to be from supposed to's. It's going to be because I choose this.
right.
Yeah. And I've filled my cup, I've charged my battery enough that when I choose this, you bet they're getting the best out of me.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I get the whole am I living a life that I love? Right? That's something that I talk about all the time on the trainings I give. Like, are you living a life that you love? Are you do you feel alive in what you're doing? And if not, what do you need to do in order to shift that just a little bit, right? My marketers recently sat me down and were like, "We figured out where you should go, but we're 5% off, or we're 4 degrees off, or we're 10 degrees off, right?" And so I'm like, okay, that's not a big deal because if right here, right, that's only that much, but then right? If you continue that out, that's the difference between England and Italy,
Yep. Yep.
right? Like
Yeah.
if I leave Pennsylvania and I'm 5 degrees off course, dude, I'm gonna wind up in some other part of the world.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
And so I really need to be focusing in on what is it that's heart centered for me and trusting my gut and trusting my stuff. And when they came to me and said, "We need you to figure this out for yourself," I was like, I hired you to figure this out. And then one, I hired you to figure this out. And two, I was like, "Are you firing me? Like, are you saying I'm not okay to do this? Like, you don't want me?" And they were like, "No, no. If we were firing you, we would be having a meeting on Friday, and would be giving the meeting, and it would be 15 minutes long. Instead, you will have all three of us. And no, that's not what we're saying."
Yeah. Wow. What a beautiful call forward from your team,
Yeah,
right? To be like, hey, we love you enough to mirror this back to you right now,
Right.
and for that to be an opportunity to personally check in, like where am I out of alignment, and where did I give my power away?
Mm. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the
And they were
moment
like, if
that
you
we're
keep
like,
doing this work the way you're doing it, you're going to burn out. And I was like, I am burnt out already.
yes, yeah. And this is so common. I've done this so many times myself, especially in building my business, is thinking that someone outside of me knows better than I do.
Hmm. Well, I've never done this. I never took a business course. I never did, like, I was an English major. I was an English major and I have a Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing and I have a master's in social work. I have no idea how to market. And they were like, you need to be on Instagram. And I was like, I hate that. Like,
Mhm.
do I have to be on Instagram? They're like, yeah, you need to be on Instagram. So like they put me on Instagram and I was like, I don't want to be on Instagram. And so now when we had the meeting and I was like, I hate Instagram, they were like, oh, well, come off it. And I was like, well, how do I get found? Like, we're not going to get found there if your energy is, I hate it, right? You're not helping yourself at all. And I was like, oh, okay. So I've like totally toned down the Instagrams because it just feels better, right?
Yeah.
It just feels more authentic. I was never really on Instagram. I got on Instagram for Social Work Your Life.
Mhm.
And so now I'm just like, well, if I'm going to grow, I'm going to grow because energy is going to make that happen, not because I'm forcing a paradigm.
Yeah. So common, right, with people at different stages of business is thinking that it needs to happen a certain way based on what you see or what you've been taught or what you've been
Right.
told. I was on a call with a woman this morning who was, contemplating starting a coaching business and diving into it. And she's feeling really called to the work, but she's like, man, like I don't subscribe to hustle culture. And I know that
Yeah.
entrepreneurs work 80-hour weeks and I don't want it to feel icky. And I'm afraid that I have to be really salesy. And I was like, no, like we get to do this in a way that feels good to you. Like for
Mhm.
me, what feels good to me is being so connected to why I'm doing this in the first place and leading from service always, always.
Right.
I want to align with my why, which is really to support generally other women because we have a lot more conditioning around what blocks us
Right.
when we're going for our dreams, is really supporting women who have big medicine on their heart, like magic that they know need to get into the world
Mhm.
for healing of the entire, population, or at least just one, and helping them unblock themselves, right? And all of the human paradigms and beliefs like imposter syndrome and doubt and overwhelm that comes up so
Mhm.
they can do what they came here for.
Right.
I am so excited about that. And so that's what drives me. And being in alignment with my head, my heart, and my gut, and that being what I choose from every single day. And that gets to change moment to
Yeah.
moment. And I get to check in. But that be the place that I'm choosing from rather than someone else outside of me knows better. Yes, consult me. Yes, I'm going to learn. Like, yes,
Yes.
please tell me some different ways of doing this. But
Exactly.
I am the empowered woman here that gets to choose.
Right. And I didn't realize that right away. I had to like, I needed to have a sit down. And I
Mhm.
was like, well, you're the business people, like, so there was one day when one of my business coach was like, we're going to do this on LinkedIn. And there was like a lot of energy there. And I was like, okay. So she and I went through LinkedIn together and we were looking at it. And then we got off LinkedIn and I went on LinkedIn by myself and all that energy wasn't there.
Mhm.
All the energy was carried by her, not by me.
Mhm.
And and I came back to her and I was like, this isn't going to work. And she's like, why isn't this going to work? I'm like, because the energy's not there. She's like, but the energy was there when I was there. I was like, right, because you brought the energy there is there for you. It's not there for me. And she
Mhm.
was like, oh, that makes sense.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm like, that's just right. Like
Oh.
just as you're walking it out, the person who brings you in, right? Like the person they have energy that they're bringing in, and so it feels aligned. But then when they're not there and you're doing it on your own, right? It's sort of like the teacher who makes the classroom fabulous. But then when you have to go do the math homework on your own, you're like, I have no idea how to do this because their energy is not here to help me figure this out.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. So how do people find you?
Mm. Yeah, Instagram is a great place to land. It's just my name, but the handle is just in reverse. It's Tessier.Andrea. It's
And
a
that's
great,
spelled Tessier.
yeah.
Okay.
Well done. Yeah, that's me. That's a great place to land. I'm sometimes live in a Facebook group that is called the Empowered Coach, but Instagram is a really great place to land. And, if there's something that resonates, I actually love having conversations with people as a generator in human design, being able to respond to people and be of service and ask questions. Like, I love it. So if anybody's like, oh, I wouldn't want to reach out and bug her or whatever the story is, for those parts, like I actually love it. And it gives me energy to respond to something and to be able to support people. So do reach out there. That's probably the best place to be for now.
Okay, sounds great.
Mhm. Thank
Anything
you.
else that you have the platform and the floors, or anything else that you think I have this thing I really want to say?
Ooh, okay. Let me just check in with my body and see what's here. Hmm. I think what just feels like coming through is that, whoever is listening, wherever they're at in their journey, you're exactly where you're supposed to be,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
You're exactly where you're supposed to be right now. And does it always have to be this way? Absolutely not. You get to make that choice, but the universe doesn't make mistakes. And true safety comes from relaxing into who we really are. And then you'd be surprised at how effortlessly the ship course corrects.
I'll take all of that. Thank you for that reminder.
I love what comes through when I open the channel. That was good.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much.
You're so welcome. It's such a pleasure to connect. And thank you, everybody, for listening. And if you're listening to this and you feel a resonance, please reach out on Instagram, say hi, say that you listened and what you loved. And it'd be so great to meet you.